Hello, everybody. We're going to get started here. We would very much like to welcome you all here to our annual Women in Law Networking and Recruiting Conference. I think we were trying to count up how long we've been doing it, and it may be as many as 15 years, so it's quite a tradition here. And anybody that knows better than I do can contradict that, but we could go back to at least 2007 and maybe further back. So it's just wonderful to be here with all of you. It's such a blessing, I feel, to be able to be here in person after a virtual year, and also to have the new technology to be here with those who can't be here in person. So there's blessings that have come out of all this stuff for sure. My name is Jennifer Wilson. I'm the current chair of the J. Reuben Clark Law Society Women in Law Committee. The Law Society is made up of lawyers from all over the world who are mostly of our faith of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but also of any faith. It's for lawyers of faith and lawyers who feel that with their faith and their religion can assist in doing good in the world through their profession. So it's part of the mission of the Law Society. So this conference truly has long been a highlight for me. It's so inspiring to be here with so many women and some men who really feel a desire to potentially pursue a legal education, and some who are already embarked on the road to legal education. I love how the numbers of women have grown through the years in law school. I was thinking back, my dad started law school in 1960 at Bolt Hall at Berkeley, and in his class of hundreds, there were 3 female law students. I started here in 1983, and when I was here, we were 1/5 women. And now my son, who's a 1L this year, is in a class with 50% women. So it really is. It's such an exciting time to be a woman, and it's a great time to be a lawyer. So I would definitely recommend it for anybody that asks. The goal of this conference really is to provide encouragement and inspiration, and motivation for women who are considering law school or who've already started. Our theme tonight is Your Legal Career Arch, Embracing Peaks, Valleys, and Turns, which is really a fancy way to say that being a lawyer is a wild and wonderful ride. And just to help convince you of that, to demonstrate this point, we're lucky tonight to have 4 amazing lawyers here with us to share with us their legal journeys. And I can't wait to hear from them. You're really in for a treat. Before we move forward with our program, I wanted to recognize some people that are here with us tonight. First, I wanted to recognize the Women in Law Committee that puts this on. So if you're on the Women in Law Committee right now, would you mind just standing up? These people are fabulous leaders. They've done amazing things through their lives, and all of them are also wonderful mentors. So if you have any questions about law school, the Law Society, I'm certain they would love to tell you about it. Let's see. I wanted to see who else was here that I knew. Gayla Sorensen, who is here with us tonight. She is our outgoing executive director of the Law Society and also worked for many years at the law school and has made so many instrumental changes in a great way for women and for men who are in law school and in the Law Society. So thank you, Gayla. Forrest Hansen was here, but Forrest is not in here, but he's behind the scenes setting up. He's our new executive director of the Law Society. Also, is going to be wonderful in his new role, and you may see him around the law school if you're a law student. I think that's Annette Jarvis I was hoping would be here, but she is our incoming chair. We may see her around tonight of the J. Reuben Clark Law Society. And anyway, it's a wonderful, there's so many wonderful women who have really forged the path for us, and grateful that they're here, and grateful for all of you that are going to forge amazing paths in your lifetime. So with that, we're going to get started. I'm going to tell you about the schedule tonight. First, we're going to have an invocation by Emily Hoagland, who is a 1L here and also a new member of our Women in Law Committee. After that, Randall Hawkins, who was an instrumental and major planner of this event, is going to introduce our 4 panelists. Our panelists will have about 40 minutes to talk to you, to give a little presentation on what they do and what their path has been, and then you'll have time after that to ask any questions that you'd like to ask. So we'll go to that point.
Our dear, kind, and gracious Father in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered here as a community of women, both as budding and experienced professionals. We are grateful for those who have prepared this event and for those who will be speaking to us today. We ask for thy Spirit to be with them and with us as they deliver their messages, and that we will have open hearts and minds to what they have to teach to us tonight. We are grateful to be seeking an education and to be building skills that will allow us to better serve and love those around us in our homes, in our communities, and in our workplaces. We are grateful for the chance to be at this institution and for those who have been instrumental in building it up and allowing us to be a part of it. We, again, are grateful for this time together and ask for thy Spirit to be with us and say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Hi, I'm Randallyn, and I am delighted to introduce these 4 outstanding panelists that we have that represent very diverse career paths. First, we have over here Judge Jennifer Brown, is a 2002 graduate from Brigham Young University's J. Reuben Clark Law School. After graduation, Judge Brown joined the Salt Lake City office of the New York-based law firm of LeBeau, Lamb, Green, and McRae in their commercial litigation department. That Salt Lake office separated from New York, and they formed a local law firm called Mabee Murray LLC, which then merged into the Chicago-based firm of Chapman and Cutler in 2006. In 2011, Judge Brown started the law offices of Jennifer A. Brown PC and worked as a sole practitioner. He focused primarily on commercial litigation and construction law and served as in-house counsel for one of her primary clients. Judge Brown was also a court-certified mediator prior to becoming a judge. Judge Brown was appointed to the 4th District Court in December 2014 by Governor Gary Herbert. She serves Juab, Millard, Utah, and Wasatch counties. I don't know if I said those counties or I'm not from Utah. But she's primarily located in Wasatch County. Judge Brown is currently the presiding judge for the 4th Judicial District and is the first female to serve in that position. Judge Brown has 3 children, 1 daughter and 2 sons, who often accompanied her to BYU because they were ages 9, 7, and 4 while she was in law school. They are now all grown up, and her sons have finally made her a grandma. Just 1 week ago, a granddaughter was born to her oldest son and his wife, and her youngest son and his wife are expecting twin boys in February. How exciting that she gets a new title of grandma. And a little known fact about Judge Brown is that she recently got married in March and will soon be known as Judge Mabee as soon as the Social Security Administration allows in-person appointments for name changes. Next we have Tracy Nuttall. She also graduated from BYU Law School in 2010 and spent most of the last decade working as a nonpartisan legislative attorney for the Utah legislature. Currently, she owns her own business, contracting to do legal research and technical writing, and is the vice president of programs for the nonprofit organization Project Elect. She also serves as the vice chair on the board of Mormon Women for Ethical Government. Tracy has been married for 20 years to Mark Nuttall, and together they parent their 3 children and support each other's careers while enjoying the beautiful scenery in Alpine, Utah, especially this time of year, right? Next we have Danielle Dallas, who was raised on the East Coast, primarily in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She came to Utah to attend BYU, where she earned a bachelor's degree in piano performance and enjoyed a variety of extracurriculars, including living in the foreign language housing and being part of the stellar ballroom dance team. Shortly before beginning classes at the J. Reuben Clark Law School, Danielle married Scott Dallas, who was completing his bachelor's and master's degree in accounting at BYU. He was her strongest support through law school while she continued to teach group piano classes for the BYU School of Music and participate in various law school activities, including a traveling Woody Dean trial advocacy team. During her 2L and 3L years, she clerked for the Utah Attorney General's Office Children's Justice Division. Following graduation in 2007, Danielle worked for a small nonprofit, followed by employment as an assistant city prosecutor for Salt Lake City until she and Scott started a family. During the early years of raising their 4 children, ages 1 to almost 11, she stayed busy teaching piano, accompanying, volunteering with community organizations, and serving on several nonprofit boards. She has also been active on both the local and international levels of the J. Reuben Clark Law Society. Since moving back to the Provo area 5 years ago, she spent a few hours a week doing freelance legal work. In January 2021, she returned to BYU Law School and has a 3/4 time job as a career advisor. She loves the combination of working with the students and reaching out to the legal community to bring opportunities and information on behalf of the student community. Danielle loves to learn and even enjoys activities she isn't very good at yet, such as cycling, and she still plays the piano as much as possible and particularly enjoys duets and accompanying. And lastly, we have Heather Farnsworth. She's a partner at the law firm of Match & Farnsworth, PC, and has practiced in the area of Social Security disability law since 2002. Heather represents individuals throughout the entire process from the initial application with Social Security through hearings before an administrative law judge. Also, she represents claimants before the Appeals Council and Federal District Court. Ms. Farnsworth holds a Bachelor of Science from the University of Utah and received her law degree from the J. Reuben Clark Law School in 2002. Ms. Farnsworth is admitted in Utah and Idaho and handles administrative claims throughout the United States. Heather is active in the legal community and currently serves as the president of the Utah State Bar. She has served as a commissioner of the Board of Bar Commissioners for the Utah State Bar since 2012. Previously, Heather served on the board of the Women Lawyers Utah from 2008 to 2013 and as the president of the Women Lawyers of Utah from 2011 to 2012. In addition, Heather is also very active in the general community and currently serves as the co-founder and organizer for Cancer Bites Salt Lake City, a benefit in which 100% of the proceeds are donated to the Huntsman Cancer Institute. On the board of Real Women Run and as an advisor on Salt Lake Community's College Women's Business Institute Advisory Board. Heather has been named by Utah Business Magazine as one of Utah's legal elite in the area of health law for the years 2010 through 2021. And I am told that she was just this week appointed to be an administrative law judge. So that's very exciting, and I hope you give a warm welcome to
Well, hello everyone. Turn my microphone on. I am so excited to be here. It's really an honor to be invited back. A couple of my classmates, we were reminiscing about our time there. This room did not look nearly as nice as it does right now. It was a little darker, not quite as much natural light, but still a lot of really fun memories. So I wanted to just start a little early in my life, and so I only have 10 minutes. I'm going to try to condense this, but I'm one of those few people who really knew what I wanted to do at a pretty young age. I was in 4th grade when I announced that I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't really know for sure all that meant. My family really didn't have any lawyers. In fact, I was the first college graduate out of my family, and so law school was a laudable. I mean, it seemed unattainable in spite of the fact I really wanted it. I graduated from high school at 16, and I lived in a small town in Colorado, and back then you didn't get to go to college online. And so I was faced with the choice of not going to college or moving away from home at 16. Those were kind of my choices, and I didn't feel ready to leave for college or leave home at that time. So instead I stayed home and I went to work. And I ended up meeting and marrying my husband at 18. And so by that point, now I'm a married woman and school had not yet begun for me. But I still had the desire, and I started trying to figure out how is this possible for me. And so I started taking a class or two as I could afford it at a community college. And it took me 6 years to earn an associate's degree, a 2-year degree. And looking back on it now, I don't know if I had known how long it would actually take if I would have kept with it. But the reality is that even that time would have passed anyway, right? And so even just taking a course here and there and having it add up got me down the path toward where I was hoping to go. I was fortunate enough that I I received a scholarship, a full scholarship, to finish my bachelor's degree. And so I was able to, after 6 years to get a 2-year degree, I finished off the last 2 in 2 years, in 4 semesters. Having done that, though, while I was still having children, in fact, my youngest son was born on December 30th, which was a semester break for me, and he was back in school with me on January 4th when the new semester started, because I didn't want to take the risk of losing the scholarship that was going to allow me to finish. And so needless to say, after those 2 years, I was a little tired. Moved from Michigan to Utah and decided to kind of take a break and figure out what was going to happen next for me. I will say this, that I still didn't think law school was a possibility because of just the life choices that I had made. And so I had pursued my undergraduate degree in the field of law. I got my associate's degree as a legal assistant, and I pursued a bachelor's degree in legal administration because I thought at the very least I could work in a law firm, right, even if I wasn't a lawyer. And then I, on a whim, took the LSAT just to see, and this will tell you how naive I was about the process. Mary Hoagland's here. She was here at that time. I called the law school admissions office and I said, if this is my GPA and this is my LSAT score, could I get in there? And thankfully, it was at a time that I don't know if it was just the perfect time, but they said, send us your application. That was in July. They offered a position in the class in August, and I just wasn't ready at that time. I hadn't made plans about what to do with my children and how I was going to make it work. And so I deferred for a year. And then started the following year and managed to be in the class of 02, which is the best class. And so it was a really good thing that I deferred. But law school for me was different than my classmates. You know, there were many of my classmates who didn't have children, many who had children but had a stay-at-home spouse who helped to take care of them. And for me, it was, you know, I had to manage my children and their activities and their needs in addition to my classwork. And so I was panicked my first semester, thinking there was no way that I was going to be able to compete. I would take my children to school, and then I'd come here, and people would already be here studying. And then as I would leave to go get my kids and pick them up, those same people were still here studying, and I was having to leave, and I thought there's just no way. But thankfully, yeah, I made it through, and then went to work at a firm based out of New York, which was a pretty demanding job. But the reality for me was becoming a lawyer allowed me to manage my family so much more than if I had stayed in the position of a paralegal or a legal administrator, because I had so much more flexibility in being able to work the demands of my job around the demands of my family. And so for me, it was a great fit, and I loved it. I did a lot of things in law school to figure out that I enjoyed litigation, which is why I pursued that as a career. And thankfully, along the way, I had some really great mentors and support who gave me opportunities and helped me to grow as an attorney. And you know, I've said a couple of times on a whim, I didn't really anticipate becoming a judge. That was not, I mean, law school was, for me, the reach, right? Becoming a judge after law school was just something I hadn't even contemplated. I applied on a whim. And the reason I did that, I applied thinking it was not going to happen for me at that point, but I thought it might be a 5-year plan or a 7-year plan. And there's a lot of advice in becoming a judge that sometimes you have to apply multiple times in order to get yourself known and for people to understand who you are and what your practice is. And I was very fortunate again to be appointed the first time that I applied, and that changed things for me once more, and I had to adjust. And so I took the bench in 2014, and that has been such an amazing experience. Once again, welcomed by people who were great mentors and helped me as I transitioned from practice to becoming a judge. And so I look back now on my career and just think I'm so grateful that I pursued this path, and I'm so grateful that it gave me the opportunity to do the things that I've done and to be still very much involved with my family. We've obviously been reflecting a bit since I became a grandma, and the one thing, sorry, I'll get emotional here, but the one thing that my son said to me is that looking back, he just doesn't remember me ever not being there. I was there for games, I was there to do things with them, and my career in the law is what gave me the opportunity to do that. And so that's my story. And I just want to encourage you to understand that there are traditional paths to the law, but there are so many other ways as well. And certainly I would consider mine to be a non-traditional path. But if you're determined and if it's something that you want, you can get there.
These are the same mics we had in the committee room, so. Okay, rookie mistake, right? Or not so rookie. Okay, anyway, I was just saying I love that story, and I am so grateful to be here. I'm Tracy Nuttall. Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. I love connecting with women, and I have just a special place in my heart for Latter-day Saint women. You'll probably learn a little bit about that as I talk about my career path. I love the theme of the conference because it's so realistic, and I would just say in my life I have had no flat stretches at all. It's been all peaks, valleys, twists, and turns the whole time. So that's why it's kind of crazy. I'm going to do my best to tell you a little bit about it, talk fast. So I was a philosophy major at BYU. And the funny thing is that I had a really good feeling when I declared my major, maybe the first real spiritual feeling I'd had about like a direction in my life. And that has just proved to be true, but at the time I had no idea what I would do with it. And lots of philosophy majors go to law school, and I said, I will never go to law school. It's so boring. That's for boring people. I'm cool, I guess. I don't know. So never say never, right? So I got married my last year of school, and I am ashamed to say that I just assumed we'd start having kids. And I'm ashamed not because that's a bad thing, but because I just didn't put any thought into it. And I just want to tell you all, be intentional about your family. That's a really important thing to do. You just want to know when you look back that you were really intentional about the choices that you made. I wish I had done that. So we moved to Oregon. My husband went to med school there, and I worked a couple of different jobs. And at one of my jobs, I was exposed to federal regulations, and I found them very interesting, which was like, oh, I like boring things. I didn't know. Turns out philosophy is boring to most people. So, and then when it became clear that we were having infertility problems, it like sort of wasn't a big stretch. It was kind of like, okay, I'm going to go to law school. So we moved to Utah for Mark's residency, and I ended up at BYU Law. And I was so grateful at that point that I'd had a few years working before I went back to school. I was just really immature, and I really needed the discipline, and I needed the time, and I needed to work, and that was a really, really good choice for me, even though I didn't really plan it that way. It was also really beneficial to watch my husband Mark go through med school and residency. I needed to see him do that and to see how he did that before I could do it, and it was really important to me. So there are different paths, and I just think the Lord really knows what you need, and he will just get you there in different ways. So that was really beneficial. So at law school, the two big things I did were law review because I love writing. I love technical writing, which also, again, is very boring. Cool to me, not to others. I took as many conflict resolution classes as I could, which were just, I was just like passionate about conflict resolution. My husband's like, I can't hear about mediation one more time. Like, it's not that cool, Tracy. And so I just wanted to mention that because I had some really good advice from my sister when I was young, and she just said, like, follow all your passions and your interests, and as your career path goes along, things will kind of weave in, and you'll kind of find out where you need to go. And in my life, that has been really, really true. So don't be afraid to do what you enjoy, and I think in law school particularly, it's very tempting to do what everybody else is doing and to feel like there's one path to success. So don't be afraid to do what you are feeling like you really want to do. That's helped me too. So let's see. And then those two things, like the writing and the conflict resolution, and then I took this drafting class, and those three things basically got me my job at the Utah legislature. I didn't know it at the time, but they actually have a test to work there where you like write for an hour or something, and I like had to rewrite a statute, and I had done that in the drafting class, and so that like gave me a big thing. So just it'll all come together. It's very exciting. So I did get hired there later. And I just want to say one really quick law school blessing that we had, that my husband was like he's not like a miracles person, but he was like, this was really cool. So I came to BYU, and at that time there was this doctor at the BYU Health Center. I don't think he's there anymore, but he basically was giving students like really cheap fertility treatments, which was kind of cool because we like couldn't afford fertility treatments. So we did one IUI with him, and he charged us like $50. There's my $50 baby right there. So that was like a great law school blessing that we had. And this is my daughter Mira. I'm so proud of her, and I'll mention her again in a minute. So I just wanted to tell you that. So let's see. Let me check the time real quick. Let's see. So I need to skip a little bit. Okay, so I did have a baby in law school. I had her 2 weeks before finals in my second to last semester. So it was like a little bit crazy, okay? Like, I'm not really sure. It's all kind of a blur. I don't really know what happened. So, but it happened, and it was okay. And it happened because people in my law school class, I had seen them do it, and I had seen other women at BYU Law do it, and I thought I could do it. And I had people tell me, I don't think that's a good idea. But it was okay. I had the support that I needed in the law school, and that was really cool. So I was like, I got through the end of the year, and I did not apply for jobs. I was too tired. I think people understand, moms. And so I was like, I'm just going to study for the bar. Studied for the bar, took the bar. I did pass it. That was a good thing. And then I was kind of like, oh my gosh, the economy for attorneys is so bad right now. And there's a new crop of law students just about ready to graduate the next year. I was like, I have to do something. I have to get my foot in the door. So I applied to this random job at UVU to teach business law. Didn't really think I'd get it. I got it. I taught business law for 2 semesters there, and it was a really interesting learning situation. And I really enjoyed the teaching part. The politics are always like weird and like higher ed, right? Or just me? It was just me. Okay. So then I actually did this little clerkship in the 2nd district that I didn't ever think I would do a clerkship, but my friend kind of recommended me, and I ended up doing that for a few months, and it was really cool. And I wish I could have stayed, but the economy was so bad. And at the time, I got a job offer from the legislature, who had turned me down a couple months before about a job, and then they came back and said they'd like come back. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And that was actually really kind of like my dream job. I really, really loved working there, and I'm still kind of sad that I left. But I worked there for 2 years full time, and I wish I could tell you all the stories about how I worked there full time and I quit, and then they wouldn't let me go part time, and so I just quit because I was having another baby, and then throughout it, they ended up giving me all this flex time, and it was like this great story. That's just in a nutshell. It was really cool. So I ended up working there for about 8 years, and then a couple of years ago, I just had this really strong feeling out of the blue that it was time to quit, and it was because of my kids. And so just listen to those. It's hard. It's still hard. I miss that job, but I know the things that have come into my life because of that decision are way more important than staying there and just doing whatever I wanted to do. So what has come from that is that now I have this little contract job with the State Board of Education in special ed. I love that, and I started my own little corporation for my a little 5-hour-a-week job. So I'm my own employer. It's pretty fun. I named it and I set it up, so it was really cool. And then what I really wanted to do is I kind of was my husband has a good salary. I just think I kind of want to work for free now that I'm going to be home more. So I was really interested in Mormon Women for Ethical Government. I really liked what they were doing. at the time, and I was just really inspired by Latter-day Saint women getting together to try to change the world. And so I told them I would draft their policies and procedures for them, which I did, and then I ended up kind of being one of the assistant executive directors there. I learned how to do some fundraising, so I'm just like, the last 2 years have been really uncomfortable for me, I'm not gonna lie. It's been a rough time because I've learned so many new things, so it's been really cool. And then I actually ended up transitioning to the board of Mormon Women for Ethical Government, and I've learned a lot of skills there. And I would actually really recommend trying to be on boards and commissions when you have the opportunity and when those come up, because those are actually where jobs come from, networking comes from. It's really, I wish I had heard more about that earlier in my life. It's pretty cool. So while I was at MWAG, I actually heard about Project Elect, and so I kind of moved over to Project Elect, but stayed on the MWAG board. And Project Elect is Women in Public Service, and our mission is to help more Latter-day Saint women get elected to public office. So this is just something that I was like excited about MWAG, but there was something about Project Elect that I was just like, this is it. This is like so cool. So it's okay to follow your passions and realize how they kind of develop, and you really can kind of like narrow them down and hone them. So that was really exciting to me to realize, like, there's all these cool things out there and you can kind of get specific. So one thing I will mention about that is that there was a moment. So I'm new to nonprofits, okay? And I don't know what I'm doing in nonprofits. I'm not comfortable there, okay? And it's like kind of the Wild West in some of the nonprofits I've worked for. And so it's just uncomfortable, but for some reason the Lord really likes that, So here I am. But what I learned, and I'll just share one experience because I think this is just so applicable to all women, is that I had this experience where I was sitting down and I was like, I gotta do this Project Elect stuff. I was kind of nervous. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just had this strong feeling like, if you don't do it, who else is doing it? No one else is out there doing this right now. And it is the only organization that is doing that for specifically for Latter-day Saint women right now. And it was like, who cares if you do it perfectly? No one else is doing it. Just do it. And so I really took that, and I hope you guys can take that into your lives too, to be like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Perfect was Satan's plan, remember? Like, we wanted like the messy, like that. We chose that, and we felt really strongly. And I think particularly as women, we were like, no, Satan. Like, that's why he hates us so much. But I digress. So, anyway, so I am probably done with my time. So I do have a few things that hopefully will come up in the questions, but I'm just excited to be here, and I hope if you have questions for me, I hope you come talk to me, and I have lots of cards if you're interested in Project Elect, so talk to me later.
You could have my time, Tracy. I just feel really humbled to be here and to share space with these amazing women. I appreciate the introduction that Randolyn gave. I was a pianist in my undergrad life, and I knew that I wanted to do a graduate degree. I knew that I didn't want to keep practicing piano by myself in a practice room for 4 to 6 hours a day. It was just beyond what I emotionally could handle. And so I was like, med school? No, I need to take 2 more years of prereqs in order to take the MCAT, so what could I do? I ended up at law school. So talk about not being intentional about making decisions. This is a theme that you're going to see throughout my comments tonight until you get to my current position right now, because I feel like I have turned a corner in terms of maturity, in terms of spiritual maturity especially. So I hope, I'm so glad that I can be talking here among faith-based women, because that's really important to my story. It's really important to me. And it's now how I make my decisions. So there were no other attorneys in my family to bounce ideas off of, where to go to law school, how to do law school, how to make decisions in law school, how to choose classes during law school. So I did follow what I was interested in, and I also followed peer pressure to take federal taxation. I shouldn't have done that. It was really not a great class for me. It was a great class, but not for me. And so I wasn't intentional about some of those things, and I could have had a better experience if I had learned earlier on to be careful and to talk to people, to get outside my comfort zone, to increase, there's the network word. I'm going to use that for shorthand, but it's just about having relationships, developing relationships with people who can give you wise counsel, who can share perspective, and you want a variety so that you're not ending up following just one person, because their path is not your path. Your path is yours, and you can figure that out absolutely 100%. And other people can give you great ideas. But you need to know a lot of people. Well, you don't have to, but I definitely encourage you to get to know a lot of wonderful people. And if you decide to go to law school, here's a number to throw out there that a wise person taught me. But if you can have a network of 100 other attorneys by the time you graduate from law school, you are going to have a pool of people that naturally and organically mentors are going to grow from mentors and sponsors, and you can really make really great decisions between their counsel and the Spirit. So when I graduated, I did not have a clear idea of what I hoped to do. I had wonderful experiences with trial advocacy. I loved the courtroom. That is something about my piano background. I do enjoy performing. I enjoy the adrenaline of it, the combination of practice and, in the moment, some improv, because you have to when your mind goes blank. But I also was really burnt out, and I hadn't created that network of encouragement to just take the July bar. And so I didn't even sign up for the July bar. I just thought, I'm not even sure I want to do law anymore. And I found myself in the Wild West now, in the nonprofit sphere, because I tend to be public interest minded. And so I thought that would be a good fit for me. And in many ways it was, but I missed the law. And I actually realized this about myself too. I needed a larger organization so that I could get that more formal training. And so I was like, okay, I'm taking the February bar. So I was working full time, took the bar, passed the bar, and as soon as I found out about that, I was looking on legal job boards. I was also looking on nonprofit job boards, and nothing showed up. And so I ended up at the Salt Lake City prosecutor's office on a fantastic team, learned so many great skills. It was a stressful job, and ultimately what caused me to quit before I'd even hit a year, is about 10 months, was my husband and I. He was working in public accounting at the time, very, very busy, very stressful. And we had decided to start a family, and I had a miscarriage, and I was scared that I was going to have infertility problems because of stress. And so I quit. Maybe it was the right decision, but I definitely didn't make it the right way. I didn't have that network to bounce ideas off of it, for somebody to say, just try one more time, like keep working through this. You don't have to quit right now. But I did. And that's also what you're going to encounter in life, is you make decisions, and you then have the opportunity to make them the best that they can be. And so at that moment, I had stopped with the law, and I ended up having my first child, which was a wonderful success story. So I felt affirmed at least in that aspect. But I also realized, I missed the law. And I got involved with the J. Reuben Clark Law Society, volunteering on the History Committee and Media Committee, and I've jumped from one committee to the next, and it's been wonderful. I've loved the relationships that I've built, and I've gotten to attend a lot of leadership conferences, and I felt like I was kind of keeping my foot kind of in the door, and I was expanding my network, which I was then understanding, this is part of what I needed and part of what I craved. And then, let's see, back in 2016, my husband took a different job, which brought us back to Utah County, and I thought, great, this is going to be a good time to get tapped back into the law school. I had been doing, as Randolyn mentioned, I had been doing piano teaching and accompanying, and I'd served on nonprofit boards, and I continued to do some of that, just not the teaching part. And I wanted to instead spend that time back in the law and try to build my skills, because I didn't spend enough time in the law close to law school to really feel confident that I even had any skills. So I also kind of struggle with that. That's been an obstacle for me, that confidence that I have enough legal skills to be useful to somebody. And I just feel a gap between where I want to be and my abilities. So 2016, we moved back to Utah County, and I got involved in the local chapter of the Law Society here. I started taking on a little bit of legal work for other people who needed some work done. And then the pandemic hit last year, and my husband was working really, really hard. It was the second IPO of the company that he was working with, which means I didn't see him, even though he was working from home. And it was a really, really low time for me emotionally, really low. And it was also, I had also just had our fourth child, and I didn't realize that I was struggling with postpartum because it was not manifesting in the same way that I had thought that it would. And so there was just lots going on inside me. And so I was like, well, you know what? I just need human contact. And so where do I turn? LinkedIn. No, my thought was, if I get a job, I can at least be around other adults. Like that's, you can see like the irrationality behind that, because that's like where I was mental health wise, but it actually ended up being the right thing because I found the position that I'm in now. But this is where I turned a corner. I made that decision very differently than I'd made other decisions. Because once I saw the post and I thought, maybe I should go for that. I had spoken with the previous Dean of Career Development years ago, and she had mentioned, I'd love to have you come work in my office. And at the time I was like, oh no, my kids aren't in school yet. That doesn't make sense with this cultural expectations, family expectations. I'm not going to put my children in childcare. That's an obstacle that I've encountered throughout my life, is like the subconscious parameters, and we're rarely intentional about setting those up, so we have to recognize them and then address them. And sometimes they're right and good for what we need at that moment, and sometimes we need to adjust. So some of those would be, I can't put my children in childcare, I cannot pay for help around my home, I can't ask my husband to cook dinner or do laundry, some of those things that I've had to rethink. And I have a fantastic husband. I should have just involved him in the conversation sooner. But this particular possibility got me really thinking and praying really hard. And so I prayed really hard, should I even apply? And I worked on my application, and it was the final day after I'd been praying a lot. I was like, okay, I feel good about submitting my application. The Lord is pleased with that. So I submitted the application, and I got an interview. I'm like, oh, do I take the interview now? I'm not sure. Prayed about that. And I really needed that divine guidance at the time to know that I was not doing this selfishly or for the wrong reasons, and ended up going through with the interview, got the job, prayed really hard, and I said, I need to know if this is right because I'm going to need to get a nanny, and I need your help putting the right person in place for me to feel good about this. But I felt good about it going forward, and the nanny wasn't in place yet. It took a couple of weeks. It was really stressful. But I had gotten my answer that it was the right thing for me to do. And I've had that affirmation has carried me through when there have been difficulties and challenges that have come up. That's what's gotten me through. And I now have confidence that I can make these decisions, and I can take control of my life going forward. I can be the leader of my own life, and I can be a co-creator of my life with the Lord. I love the example of the brother of Jared in the book of Ether. And if you read that, asking how is he a co-creator with the Lord, there are some pretty powerful insights, and that is what the Lord wants for us. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago, and I hope I'm not the same person in 10 years from now that I am today. I love doing what I do, working with the law students and getting to know people more. And yes, thank you so much for letting me share some thoughts.
Sorry, I'm bringing this way too close, probably. Okay, so like many of the other panelists, I didn't really have an example of what a lawyer was in my young life. It wasn't necessarily something even on my radar to shoot for. I did always know I wanted to be something important. I'll use those quotation marks. I was always kind of one of those, I'll be the first woman president, or I'm going to be a neurologist, or I'm going to be this kind of people. I always kind of liked to be in charge. I'm just, a little bit bossy maybe. You can call me leader, you can call me bossy, one of the two. Both are accurate. So I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was younger. And honestly, I leaned really heavily towards, I wanted to be a dentist because I wanted to be able to create my own life where I had that work-life balance. I thought, you'll make good money, you're doing something, that's rewarding, and you have time with your family. That was what I was thinking. And then I took one biology class and I said, no, I hate this, and I like words, and what am I doing? This is not right. And by that time I had changed my major probably 4 times and finally looked at things and thought, I almost have a psychology degree. I've honestly always liked this. For whatever reason, I always kept thinking, oh, that can't be my major. But then I just went with it. It was my major. My major was psychology. My minor was creative writing. And then serendipitously, I ended up at law school. I had really good parents to kind of prep me for law school, even though, again, it was never something that was on my radar. To give you a little bit of background, my dad was the first person in his family to attend college, and I actually think his youngest sister eventually did. But and he came to BYU and he got a degree in accounting, and everybody else kind of told him he was wasting his time and spinning his wheels, and look at all the money we're making, and you're just wasting your time. But he told me early on, this is the best thing I did. Work hard now, so you don't have to work hard your whole life. And I still work very, very hard, but he means like literally. His brothers were digging ditches or working 4 jobs or doing things. Yeah, they were making more money, but they were really working. So that was his advice early on. My mother went back to college when she was 35 years old, and I was 7. She took me to her classes one day because she went to school to be an elementary school teacher. So she brought me to some of her classes, and I saw how everyone there just loved her and thought she was the coolest person. And it made me realize it's just never too late. And even if you don't fit in, and even if it's not traditional, it doesn't matter. As Jennifer said, the time passes anyway. What are you going to be doing in 3 years anyway? Do it if you're thinking about it. The time passes either way. And so with her being that example to me and being a teacher, she always made it very clear all of her kids were expected to go to college. All 5 of us did. Again, not the same boat for my cousins. And I was the last of the 5. I was the accident surprise child that came 8 years off from the rest of the herd. I actually stopped her from going to school the first time she tried to go back because I showed up. And then she went back to 35, like I said. And so there was a lot to compete with. So I just knew, this is something I need to do and I want to do. The other way they prepared me for law school was my mom was always, she went to the University of Utah. She was a Democrat. My dad went to BYU. He was a Republican. They talked at the table a lot. A lot. And most of the time it was funny. I remember one game where the U lost to BYU very narrowly in a football game, and my mom tied a big funeral thing on our door, like a huge funeral sleigh with like black ribbon, and acted like she was in mourning. And she actually preferred when they won, though, because my dad would get really, really ornery when BYU lost. So it was more fun for her to just make it a big deal when the U lost. But and so we would discuss things, and they never fought with each other. They respectfully discussed things from both sides of the table my whole life. So I learned early on, people I love and respect can have different views on the same thing, and they both can have some very valid points to make. So I think that really set me up for law school, because there's people that, you're going to be a better lawyer if you can, yes, you can laser in and focus on your client's side and their case, But if you can also see the logical arguments of the other side, then you can prepare for those arguments and respond to them much, much better. So that was kind of my background. And then when I was coming up on my senior year of college, like I said, I switched to that psychology major. I walked into something kind of like this. It was you're thinking about taking the LSAT course. And I never have won anything in my life, and I won a free LSAT test prep class. And so I just thought, well, that's weird. Okay, maybe I should take that free test prep class. And then 2 weeks later at my job, I worked at Southwest Airlines in their call center as a reservation agent. I won a $2,000 laptop computer, which was required for law school, and I just thought, this is super weird, but things are kind of pointing in this direction, and I did well on the LSAT. I ended up getting a job for the test prep course place that taught me and taught some classes, and it just felt right, and that's kind of how I ended up at BYU Law. Unlike some of the people here, I went straight through in high school, college, law school. Me and my classmate Ryan, I think you were one of the youngest too, right? We were like little babies of, we were the babies of the law school. In some ways that was good because I didn't lose focus. In other ways, I was not mature enough. I was already a little bit burnt out when it started. I took kind of I just need to pass approach, which was, I had never been that person in my whole life. I was always like, I have 94% and I can get extra credit and be 97%. I will do it. Law school, for whatever reason, when it's the most important, I was just like, I just need to pass. And, they talk to you about how grades don't matter. They don't define you. They matter for certain jobs. You just need to decide where you want to end up. I did fine though. You'll get there, even if you pass with that 2.1 or whatever it is. You're still a lawyer, right? So it's okay. And then again, started law school young, started kind of immature. I remember Mary Hoagland talking to us about networking and just thinking that was the grossest concept in the world. It's fake. And then I realized it just means having friends. And I was like, oh, well, I can do that. I can have friends. And I honestly think we had one of the best groups of friends. We were ridiculous. We would have days where we just decided, hey, it's like 70s day. We all show up to school dressed up. The other classes are like, what are these people doing? But we enjoyed it. We really had a good time. And yeah, there were really competitive people in the class, but you didn't have to be. And even, being friends really made it a much easier experience and a much more fun experience. And I hear a lot of people talk about how miserable their law school time was, and I don't feel that way. I loved it here. And I love the people that I met here still. And even though we'll go years without seeing each other, when I see them, it's a great feeling. Other things that happened, I got married my second year of law school. I've been dating him forever. I met him my senior year of high school, and we were just finally ready. Had my daughter the last year of law school, did not plan that, took measures to protect against that. She didn't care. She came anyway, and so sometimes life throws you curveballs. I thought I'd have a 5-year, at least, marriage and get started in my career, but I'm so grateful that happened the way it happened because it forced me to narrowly focus on my priorities right away. And so I didn't get caught up in things. I knew right away this little baby girl I have to find time for her. And my husband's very flexible. We split childcare. And I'm so grateful I came to BYU because had that happened at another law school, I don't think it would have been the same supportive environment. I was allowed to watch classes on the little closed circuit TV while I was pumping, or brought my daughter to school. She came in one of those little snuggly things because I really did the story is so dumb. It was right before spring break, and my water broke, and I didn't call my mom. I didn't call anyone except my friend Carolyn, and I called her and said, you need to tell the professor I'm missing the midterm tomorrow. I'm having a baby. And so she did. have a weekend. And right away, I just started coming to class with her on my chest in her little snuggly. She started crying in Professor Wardle's class. I got up to excuse myself, and he said, "Don't you leave." And I turned around horrified, and he said, "Lawyers need to know how to work under distractions." He said, "You're fine. You stay here, you listen, you don't need to miss this." And it was this dancing, like, kind of mortified, but also kind of grateful. And he was right. You know, life, you're not in this perfect little vacuum, so you do need to learn how to focus when there's distractions. And it was great. It was a great experience, and I'm so grateful. I was one of the first people to have a job my third year. I got a job freakishly at the end of my second year because I had taken a lot of labor and employment classes, and I applied at a law firm who was in the middle of a labor dispute. I didn't know, and so they just pulled me in. I was like, "Wait, I'm a brand new baby. I don't know this. I've just read about it," but they hired me. He was one of the first to graduate from this law school. He's in the first class. He told me straight out he had a really hard time with women being lawyers, and he was I had to convince him it was okay. He told me he couldn't go to lunch with me because how would that look, all those things. But he was a good guy at heart. He just was very old school. But my daughter coming along, I think, really did get to the firm, got the best of them both, and they kind of panicked, and they didn't keep me on. So I was devastated because I thought I had this job locked down for a year, and then suddenly I'm at the end of my third year and I don't have a job. But it was the best thing that could have happened to me. I ended up applying for this other job. It was part-time. They hired me. They mentored me. I stayed in that field for 20 years. So sometimes the worst things can be the best things. I never knew what disability law was. I had never heard of Social Security disability until I started doing it. It was not my passion. It was not something that I had a great story about. I did know I wanted to help people. I thought I wanted to be a child advocate because of my background in psychology. That was really hard on me emotionally. I wanted to take everybody home. When I did my psychology practicum, I realized there's no way I can do this my whole life. But disability was kind of this nice compromise. I was still helping people through a really hard struggle in their life, but I didn't feel like I had to rescue them all. And so it just was a really great, really natural fit for me. And then 10 years ago, the firm that I was at split. The two partners went their separate ways, and so I partnered with one of the partners and started my own firm with her. And it's been really fun. And now, this week, I started a brand new job after 20 years of doing the same kind of law. I was hired by the Utah Labor Commission to be an ALJ, and I'll be doing workers' comp. So it's scary. I'm learning again, and part of me is like, what am I doing starting over at 44? But it's that same thing. Time's going to pass anyway. And I have been so excited to feel challenged and learn new information. It's scary, but it's been really exciting, and so I guess the moral of all that story is you might not know where you're going to go, but you might, as long as you're following, if things start to fall into place, trust that. And that's kind of how my whole career has been. Things have kind of pointed me one way, and they've started to fall into place. And if it feels right and you're doing the job, don't worry about the rest of it or what you should be or what kind of law you should do. Just do what feels right to you, and you're going to be a lot happier. Social Security is a super isolated, narrow area of practice, and also I was practicing in Salt Lake, and all my classmates were here in Provo, or actually UIU's crazy because they just everywhere. That's the nice, we joked about the Mormon Mafia network, but it is. You can spread all over the place and still have connections. And so I kind of felt when I went to Salt Lake and started practicing at the firm I was at, oh, I'm in this little bubble again. So the best advice I can give is if you do feel that way, volunteer. Some of the most rewarding things I've done has been in my volunteer work for the Women Lawyers of Utah, which again led me naturally to being on the bar commission for the Utah State Bar. And I've met so many fantastic people through that. And, you might not get financial gain, but you get satisfaction. And you do get other perks. You get travel, you get CLE, you get, it's 100% do it. If you ever get into law and you feel stuck and you feel isolated, reach outside yourself and volunteer and to other organizations. And I think I've definitely ran over my time. So.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. We're going to start now the question and answer portion. We have about 10 minutes. It's a hard shut-off on Zoom at 1:15, so we really only have 10 minutes. So if you have a question for someone individually, you can say their name, or you can just ask a general question, and they can choose who wants to field it. So go ahead.
I actually had a question for Tracy. Tracy works for the Utah legislature, right? Yeah. And I was thinking about doing that. Why did you like working for the Utah legislature? Like, what were some main draws for it for you? Can you repeat the question on the microphone?
Yeah, so she said, what is one of the main draws for me for working for the Utah legislature? So I didn't really get to get into this, but I was talking about conflict resolution and my writing. So you draft bills there. So if you don't like technical writing, you're not going to like it. And I loved it. And I loved getting in that structure, and I loved my specialty basically was the Utah code. So I could learn the Utah code, and then I learned like the education code, and then at one point we recodified the education code. So these were a big draw for me, but I also am an extrovert, if you can't tell. And I loved working with people. So basically, the legislators up there are your clients, right? And then they would give you these bills to draft, right? And then you would have people from both sides come in, and they would kind of figure out how it needs to be written. And they would fight or whatever they would do. And I just love being the person in the middle who was like, oh, here's an option, we can write it this way, we can word it this way. And it was just so fun. I really enjoyed doing that. Also, it's state government, lifestyle, it's like awesome there. Other draws for me were that I didn't really get into this, but I worked full-time for there 2 years, and then I was able to get into a situation where I worked the session, which is 10, I can't remember if it's 7 or 10 weeks, because I did like 10 straight weeks. But I think it's 7 weeks, but I would start a couple weeks early, and I would like do that like tons of hours, like 50 or 60 hours a week, and then I would either take 9 months off, I did that a couple times, or I would work part-time the rest of the year during the interim. So that was like a really cool, flexible job. My husband did not like the legislative session, but also I would say drama queen here. I did like the drama of the legislative session. It was like a very intense time. So it was fun to like do a lot of work and get that done and like learn a lot, and then I would have like an easier 9 months for the rest of the year. So that was a big draw. Hope that wasn't too long of a question. That's it.
I'll go ahead and repeat the questions after you say them so everyone can hear. Any other questions? Yes, over here.
So I'm actually a current law student, but I remember going to one of these events when I was pre-law and being so scared that I didn't want to go to law school. And so I was just wondering if anybody had any thoughts on how you guys felt when you were going into law school, just how maybe you didn't feel like you were ready or that you weren't sufficient, and how maybe you dealt with those sort of things, or how you realized that you were enough and you were able to be in law school.
Okay, the question was about feeling ready for law school, and how did they know that they were ready, and how did they deal with any maybe feelings of inadequacy?
Well, I just feel like this is totally up my alley. Yes, I think what you're feeling is 100% normal. I think every woman here has felt it. It's very scary. I will tell you, I was scared to start law school, but I was like so scared to start my job at the legislature because it was kind of like my first big job. I was so afraid. I had my husband give me a blessing, and he said in it, the Lord has been preparing you for this, like he said, for this job for years. And I just think if you can just take that, like it's okay not to be perfect. It's like nobody comes to law school knowing much of anything, and if they do, they actually don't do that well. It's really better to be like kind of humble and to just work hard. Those are kind of the two big things I would say. And I just would say if you talk to any other woman around, I think everyone will pretty much be feeling the same, and it's just normal, and it's good to just like push that away a little bit and stay calm.
Can I jump in on that one too? Not just every woman, every other student that's there in law school, if they're being honest about it, with the rare exception, like she said, who probably should have felt that way, who really didn't. But really funny story, my first day of law school, we were out, there was still the big patio out there. I haven't been on the back side, but I think it's gone now. But there was a big patio out there, and I was just standing there, and I was looking around at everybody, and I was like, oh my gosh, I so don't belong here. Like, people come to BYU in particular from all over, and they could go to any law school if they really wanted to. And one of our classmates, and this, again, I say our class is so unique. I'm sure most people feel that way about theirs. But I was standing there, and Megan McLean heard that I lived in Heber, and she has family in Heber, and this person that I had never met before comes up and like hugs me and says, I'm so glad you're here to be, from Heber. And of course, if you know Megan, she does that to everybody, so I wasn't particularly special, but in the moment, it made me feel very welcome and warm, and that I had someone, there with me that I could turn to if I needed some support, and so that was very helpful to me.
Next question in front, yes.
My question is for Farnsworth, actually. With the Zoom era starting, or having been started, does Utah State Bar have a vision to facilitate more opportunities for those in need of representation now that communication has been kind of made a lot more easier and far-reaching?
Great question. That's for Heather about the Utah State Bar and yes, their Zoom capabilities.
Okay. Excuse me. Yes. The bar was always very reluctant and focused on you need to be in person for CLEs or in person for opportunities. So the pandemic was a blessing because it forced the bar to kind of revise everything and realize you can reach a lot more people through Zoom. Last year, all of the conferences, aside from the summer convention, which was a hybrid, were exclusively on Zoom. So we have better attendance than we've ever had, and found out it was really successful. And for years, the bar was criticized as being the Salt Lake bar, even though it was the state bar. And there is truth to that. I mean, we would try to reach out to people, but there's also a way of doing things that they've always done them that way. And so it definitely, I think that was a very fair criticism of the bar, that it was a Salt Lake bar. So we worked really hard with the pandemic to reach out to more people, and they're going to keep that flexibility for online credit to count as in-person CLE going forward. And they're also working with the courts to push remote hearings so that people in rural areas have more opportunities to represent people outside of their little area. So yes, going forward, that we will be continuing to expand that.
I'll hand in the back there. Yes.
So I'm currently a high school student, and I'm actually going for my associates right now. And I know next year I'm going to have some time for internships. I was wondering what's your advice for looking for an internship in law, because I would really like to get into that.
The question was about getting an internship in the legal field. The person who asked the question is in high school still.
You're a million miles ahead of the game to even be thinking about that right now. So seriously, congratulations. I got most of my first early on internships and externships. It does help if you know people in the field and you just approach them and say, I just want to learn. People are pretty willing to hire you and teach you if you're doing it for free. So most of my first internships were, but they were worth it. I worked with, his name's Val Christiansen. He was the general counsel at Franklin Covey. Do you remember Franklin Day Planners? I got that job because he knew my dad, and I just said, hey, I'd really love to learn from you. And so he let me go work for him, and it was fantastic. So don't be afraid to ask. People are really open to the idea. Most people want to share their knowledge. They just don't really think to offer it to you. So ask, and if you don't know anyone or have any connections, go to firms in your area, or if there's specific departments that you want to work with, and just ask them if they are looking for anyone. I mean, I know my firm would be thrilled to bring somebody in and educate them and have their assistance, and I think most places would be.
There are also Prelaw advisement centers at many universities, so absolutely take advantage of those. They're going to have an idea of connections, and from the career development side in the law school, that's one of the things that our office does is the experiential learning portion, so and helping students get placement. So we also have some ideas from the students who have come in who have done legal work at firms beforehand in a quasi-paralegal kind of position, but with knowing that they're going to go to law school.
Oh, sure. I'll be really quick. There's tons of places. The Utah legislature does an internship program through political science places if you're interested in that, but both of my nonprofits will just take an intern because we can, and we basically want you to post on social media because you guys are so good at it. So, I mean, literally we're like, how would you do that? What do your friends want to see? So, almost anywhere that's like established would take an intern, I think.
And I would also just indicate that I have taken students who basically want to shadow a judge for a day, and so I'm struggling to remember which organization they came through. But if you kind of do a search for that, you're going to find some organizations that have relationships set up, and I'm always happy to do that because for me, education was a life changer.